again, thanks for joining at the site level, which is the majority of inspections are done at sites. For devices, there are around 300 annually at sites and only about 50 at sponsors. So it's more likely they'll be at a site, and then the documentation they'll have there will, of course, be your confirmation letters and your follow-up letters and any communications in between visits. But if that isn't making sense to them, or they're not seeing a lot of issues in the follow-up letter, they may actually request from you your monitoring visit report for those time periods. What they will do then is to match up your monitoring visit report with your follow-up letter to see if you're telling the investigator exactly what you're telling your management. And we often see the philosophy there being different. When I question that to monitors, they very often say, I want to be a friend of the site. I don't want to tell them that they're not doing a good job, but I need to let my management know because I want more time at the site to help them. Well, that doesn't make sense. If you want the investigator to comply, you have to let them know when they're not complying. So we would expect to see the same tone between monitoring visit reports and the follow-up letter. So investigators need to be aware of what's going on, not just in your conversation with them at the visit, which will be documented in your monitoring visit report, but also in the documentation in the follow-up letter, so that they can remember what you were talking about when you were there, and you can prove that you did discuss that issue. They're looking for corrective action, preventive action documented. How do we expect the investigator to go forth and solve a problem if you haven't documented that you raised a problem? So the monitoring visit report is our way of getting everything documented for our company, and also a way of highlighting it for our follow-up letter. So the managers should be looking at both of those to make sure that everything that's important in your visit report is also in the follow-up letter. We often see that discrepancy referred to in FDA 483s, which are the inspectional observations, if they do an inspection at a site or at the sponsors, and also in warning letters. You can get those, by the way, on the website for FDA, which is fda.gov. You go to the index, and you would do I for inspectional observations, which would be your 483 findings, and or W for warning letters. Most of those are publicly available now. There's an initiative to get everything posted on the website. We haven't quite gotten there yet. But when they cite issues with anything to do with the monitoring visit report, it typically comes under the finding of inadequate monitoring. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you, the monitor, made a mistake, or there was an error with you, the monitor. It may be the monitoring plan. It may be the manager of the monitor. It's something to do with the monitoring, not necessarily just the monitor. So we want to be watchful of that too. This does not excuse the administration, in other words. They should be following up. They should be reading those monitoring visit reports. We're expecting sponsor oversight. That's required in the regulation. Therefore, the managers are going to be signing those reports as well. Very often, your SOP will state how long do you have between your visit and getting the report released. It may also have days for the management to review and approve those. So the inspectors are looking to see that we're following our own SOPs for those. Are we doing this in a timely manner, as described in our SOP? Those timelines are not in the regulation. That's something we fine-tune in our SOPs and in our monitoring plans. So keep in mind, those all need to agree. Let's look at some of the objectives we have today. There are a number of handouts as well, which I won't go over all of those in detail, but I'll flash them up so that you can see them, and after class, look and review those more intently. There's a lot of good tips on various aspects of today's presentation in those documents that we've provided for you. So first of all, we're going to be looking at what are the requirements for documenting the monitoring activities for a device study. What do we have to document? Secondly, we want to recognize the extreme importance of a well-written monitoring visit report because they are going to be used by management. They may be used by fellow monitors if they take over your site. And lastly, they're auditable by the regulatory authorities. We're going to learn how to effectively manage those site and sponsor activities and how to document what we've done. Very often, the FDA says we don't do a good job of identifying problems, for example. I've taken that to various people within the FDA over the last few years and say that I don't believe that. I think we do a good job of identifying issues and errors in device studies. We manage a number of those. I think we don't do a good job of documenting them. And so any reviewer might think that we didn't notice an issue or that we don't follow it to resolution because we often just ignore it. We might cite that there was a problem, for example, with a consent form. Maybe there's a trend of patients not signing the bottom page if it was required that there be initials and date on the bottom of every page of a consent form, for example. So maybe we document that for these 3 patients, a couple pages were not initialed or dated. Well, we've instituted a corrective action at the site. Maybe they have developed an SOP, a QC procedure, that while the patient is still in the office, another person is looking to see that all the pages have been initialed appropriately. If not, get the patient to do it before they leave the office. And so as a result, it's been effective, and the next 3 or 4 patients that come in have every page initialed and dated. There's no more problem. We need to document that in our monitoring visit report on the next visit, that we've reviewed 6 more, or 3 more, or 4 more, whatever it was, of informed consents. And the problem of documentation has gone away.